All right, everybody, we are live again. Dynasty Mirror Search for Uhuru. And I have our special guest with us this afternoon, Miss Jackie. I'm sorry, Jackie, just Jackie. Jackie, thank you so much for joining us. Today's topic is Africa, taking the world by storm, 2020 and beyond. I know me and Jackie offline, we've discussed this in detail, and we just wanted to share. I wanted her to come on today and share her thoughts on that. And we've discussed how if you're serious about Africa and getting involved, 2020. I mean, you have until 2020 to really. I mean, it's always going to be an opportunity, but if you really want to make a true impact, you have until 2020 to really get involved, because the opportunity, the window is closing. So it's important to have a sense of urgency now to really get involved in whatever moves you plan on making on the continent, to do it now, because when 2020 hits, you're going to start seeing opportunities and whatnot shrink, I guess. So Jackie, I'll go ahead and let you take over because you're the expert at this. So what are your thoughts on that?
Hey everybody, I'm Jackie Johnson of Profile Africa. We are a brand strategy, public relations, business development, Pan-African agency. We focus on bringing brands and business from around the world to Africa and making sure Africa brand goes across the globe as well. So we make sure that you know Africa and that Africa knows you. But yes, there's some great news about Africa right now, but there's also some scary news about Africa. And I think I'll tell you the great news. The great news is we have untold possibilities and opportunities to go to Africa, establish our brand, and make great money. The bad news, though, the scary news is that we are less than 20 months away from 2020. We're 18 months away, to be exact. And the reason why that's scary news is because at the turn of the decade, as we go into 2020, 5G technology is going to be alive and well. As you all know, we're on a 4G technology, internet technology, cyber world right now. But when 5G occurs, which is on the cards to happen around this time next year and then beyond into 2020, it's going to be the next most major thing that changes our lives forever, the same way that the internet changed our lives forever. However, the changing of our lives through the internet was a gradual thing. But now that internet is everywhere around the world, then the change that the internet is going to bring with 5G technology is going to be even more rapid. And it's going to create a demand, a greater demand for immediacy from media and how we do business, to how we respond to things, because it brings us closer to virtual reality. And that is another element around doing business in Africa and really around the world. So this particular aspect of our show today is not just about Africa at large, but it really spans across our entire lives. And just like we needed to ready ourselves for the crossing over of 1999 into the new century, technologically speaking, we also need to prepare for that moving of the ball from this decade to 2020 and beyond. And we have less than 20 months to prepare for it. And if you are a trendsetter or someone who looks at opportunities and forecasts the next wave of what's hot and what's not and where to do business, if Africa is not at the top of your list, I don't care who you are. I don't care what you're doing. I don't care what industry you're in, and I don't care what business you have. Just like we cannot afford to leave out millennials in our business model, we also cannot afford to leave out Africa. And if Africa isn't one of your top three markets for how you engage your brand and your business 2020 and beyond, you suffer a huge probability of becoming obsolete, insignificant, irrelevant, and instead of being at the head of the table or even having a seat at the table, my friend, you're likely not to even be in the room.
I want you to package that some more as far as the sense of urgency one should have to, again, if you're a trendsetter, to really get in and make moves before 2020, between now and 2020.
Yeah, the reason, Dinus, there is a sense of urgency because as we look at all of the complexities of everything going on around us, particularly those who may be listening from the United States of America under the presidency of Donald Trump and the waves that he is making around the world with regards to trade agreements, immigration, the lack of attention on the African American agenda in the United States, to the lack of economic equality that one can hope to achieve here in America. So, all eyes from China, if you look at the stats of what China has invested in Africa, and how they changed their economic diplomacy even as George W. Bush was leaving office before President Obama took office. China came with a brand new economic diplomacy plan strategy for engaging Africa. So the complaint Africa had with China was that China would come in and only build a road leading to their thing, whatever it was, whatever their project was. And so the African brain trust of the economists began to speak to these presidents and say, hey, stop letting China come in and build just one road and take all their knowledge and everything and leave us high and dry, or even cut us out of our own economic opportunity. So about 2007-8, as President Obama was taking office, China began to engage differently with Africa from a partnership perspective at much higher levels than than the whole U.S. agenda. We caught up quite a bit during the Obama administration because prior to that, it was George Bush manning his wars in Iran and Iraq, and so they forgot about the economic viability of Africa and just continued to send aid. Well, we worked really hard with the Obama administration to begin changing that. We didn't achieve everything. Ebola broke out, and that took precedence over a lot of stuff that we were working on, but we did move the ball quite a bit in bringing and uniting Africa back to the American agenda, at least in the space.
Can I interject real quick? You brought up Ebola, but I mean, Africa's a continent of 54 countries. Ebola,
right?
But 3.
You're right. But what happened was, the reason why I reference Ebola, because Ebola broke out at the same exact time President Obama was hosting the 54 presidents of Africa in America, in the United States, for the very first time in history outside of a UN sitting. But it wasn't in New York, it was in Washington, D.C. at the White House, done in collaboration with Bloomberg Philanthropies, and Michael Bloomberg and the U.S. Department of Commerce. So what I'm saying is that although we covered a lot, those of us who were on the ground and in D.C., the rest of America and the world didn't hear about it because Ebola was happening, and the media chose to highlight Ebola instead of what we were talking about in Washington at such a historical time. But what did occur but the global world didn't hear about because they let Ebola overshadow the story, was the commitment that we made with Africa across the continent, and not just giving aid, but economic partnerships that we've continued. Believe me, I work in Washington. For the most time, I'm here in America. So I know what markers we've made and that we're continuing to make, but we've kept some promises that we committed to then, but it's over a 10-20 year period. And one of the things that we did after that session was make sure that the AGOA legislation got renewed for another 10 years. And let's just pray and keep our fingers crossed that Donald Trump doesn't wake up one day and decide to tamper with AGOA, the Africa Growth Opportunities Act, which is the #1 legislation that governs all trade between Africa and the United States, that allow African products to come duty-free into the United States. And I do want to kind of unpack that a little bit to further underscore why that legislation is so important, not only to America, but more importantly to Africa, because that free trade, or that their ability to bring products and services duty-free in the United States, keeping in mind that America or China is their #1 export trade partner. Sometimes it's America, the next year it's China, and we go back and forth. But nevertheless, we are a key market for Africa's products and services that fuel small and medium-sized businesses. I have to tell you that when that legislation was being renewed in 2015, before President Obama took his trip to Kenya, it already was creating economic shockwaves simply because it was on the table to be renewed. And just in case it wasn't going to be renewed, there was like a pre-panic that had already hit Africa. So we had to quickly get Congress to renew that a good 60 days ahead of its, maybe even 90 days ahead of its expiration date, just to keep markets across Africa stabilized and people wouldn't start panicking and it have some adverse market or trade effect, meaning that maybe a company that heavily relies upon an African business to supply whatever, thinking that, okay, this company may not have money anymore, may not have this, that, and the other anymore, because if America doesn't allow their products to come in duty-free, they're not going to be able to afford to keep business, so now we may not use that company anymore and use someone else. So it was a preliminary panic that was almost about to break out. But we did get that legislation renewed and revised to a more current day commitment that will continue to help and grow economically with Africa, so that the market stayed stable and our economic relationship with Africa stayed intact. And that's what occurred during the Obama administration, because that was an original Bill Clinton bill that was created. It's a 10-year piece of legislation. So it got formed during the Clinton years. But anyway, the point is that now that's been stabilized. That trade environment and economic environment has been stabilized several years, since 2015. And now, due to every other complex economic situation going on around the world, Africa is the most stable, to be quite honest, as well as the huge population growth that's taking place, in a very short period of time as we approach 2020. Let me just share that more than half of the global population growth between now and 2050 is even expected in Africa. And Africa also has a very large millennial population that is just as swift and smart as American kids, as kids in Europe. as well, because they too have been born with technology in their hands. And so they are almost on equal footing. I always tell people that the internet, or access to the internet, is the great equalizer. Before, everybody around the world had a knowledge advantage over Africa, but that's not so today. And that gap is closing every day. And as the gap closes, in terms of what you know, Dinus, living in America, to what I would know or someone else knows sitting at home in Africa, hey, we have a very short advantage window, my friend, because every day they are able to click the same clicks we are,
Right.
and access the same data you have. So whatever it is that anyone knows, not just you and me, but your audience and all around the world, really, outside of Africa, for all that we know, for all that we have access to, don't think for one moment that advantage point and window of opportunity is going to remain. It will not. And then when 2020 comes, and here's the thing, here's the misnomer that most, particularly Americans, because Europeans and people in the UK, they travel way more than Americans do to Africa.
True.
For a lot of different reasons. But be that as it may, they're not nearly as in the dark as many Americans. And I'm going to even go deeper and say as many African Americans, although African American travel to Africa has more than doubled in the last 5 years, and which is amazing. And they're not just touristing, they are cultural trips to looking at business opportunities, because many of them are my clients. And so I've helped many. But anyway, the point of what I'm saying is that for the misnomer that does remain, people think that African people are not smart and that they don't have access to information and that they don't know how to make good things in business happen in Africa. That is so not true, partially because many of the first partakers of freedom and liberation and access to money and things, these power brokers had children 20, 30 years ago, and the first thing they did was send them abroad to be educated. And so there's a huge population of people that left either during struggle years in their country to working on projects outside to gain knowledge and access to information and resources and relationships, and they're pouring back in the continent by the droves and giving knowledge back to their home country. You know, then the rise of the millennials who are able to see us on video and everything and say, that's great in America, but we're going to make Africa great. We're going to make my country great, you know. So as a result of that, it's a lot of acceleration and progress going on. And that's the misnomer that particularly African Americans still think they're in the bush or something.
Right.
And it's so far from that, as you know, and as many of our partners in Africa understand.
Now, somebody brought up in the chat room, and everybody, thank you for joining us. Make sure you hit that like button. We have 124 people watching, only 45 likes, so please don't be stingy with those likes. Hit that super chat button as well. Black Americans keep sleeping on the opportunities to escape the great American plantation, and not consider investing in Africa. Unrest will hit the West. Unrest will hit the West by 2020. I mean, what are your thoughts on that statement as far as that's happening here in America or in the West?
No, I agree with that 100,000%. Let me make sure. Did I mute you? I did. I'm just hearing a feedback. Can you hear me?
I hear you fine.
Okay, I'm hearing it. I don't know why. Um, but before I answer your question, I was trying to read one of the comments of someone who said that they were moving to Kenya at the end of the year. Kudash Media, Cheryl's Natural Again. Yeah, Cheryl's Natural Again. She says, she's commenting, but Kudash Media says that they are moving to Kenya by the end of the year. And that's great. And Kenya is a great media place because it used to be the media network for the entire continent. I remember in the 70s when I was a little girl staying on the weekends and things with my grandparents, and my grandfather always listened to the radio, and I never knew what show this was because it was a finance show, but I can remember as a child hearing about the Dow Jones Industrial Average, and back then those words were so Greek to me. But I also remember hearing news about Africa exclusively from Kenya. And if you really research Kenya from a media standpoint, it was the exclusive source for news for Africa for decades until about 1990. So, but anyway, but it's still the mecca for news, although South Africa and Nigeria have really grown in the television and TV show and Nollywood and Hollywood aspect of media. But on the news side, Kenya is a great country for that still. But back to what you were saying, yes, first of all, I believe the market in America is going to crash. I think it's going to be a big one. It's going to be worse than the 20s, is what I'm seeing in all financial and economic forecasting, as well as how I see things from a ability to see things from a spiritual context. Which I do want to say to your audience that if you are a spiritual person and you have not gone to Africa yet, or planning to go, when you do go to Africa, your spiritual acumen, your spiritual abilities will increase, I believe, like 100-fold. And that's just not my own personal testimony alone. I have lots of clients, and
I could testify to that as well.
yeah, I mean, I promise you guys, something occurs when you cross that Atlantic Ocean getting on a plane to go to Africa. It's like a spiritual metamorphosis takes place. And I'm 13 years in, and I still get choked up. I still cry. I still feel spiritually engaged or called. I don't even want to be so politically correct. I'm giving it to you raw and real. I feel spiritually called to Africa and to do business in Africa, to prosper people and myself in Africa. And so, but something absolutely occurs. And I will say, and I'm sure Dinus would agree 100%, that the more you go, the more anointed you become for the task.
Absolutely.
100. And I'm going to tell you, it's the thing, too, that binds us all together. Because before Dinus and I even met in person, we were already soul sister, soul brother, king and queen in our own space. And that's another thing. When you go to Africa and you begin engaging business or whatever your purpose is to impart your talent or develop your brand there, you gain a sense of respect for others who have done it and stuck with it and have become successful by it. Even the ones who failed but had the guts to get up and get back in the game again. You gain such respect because you will know for yourself that Africa is not America, and you do not engage the markets the same way. Absolutely not. So if you can go to Africa and make it, big kudos, big kudos, big respect, big respect. I respect so many people I meet that have been able to go to Africa and successfully engage as an African American, and not because it's tough as nails. No, it's just a different landscape, and you have to learn a lot of different things of how to engage your endeavors in order to be successful. It's not the same as being in Atlanta and never having gone to San Francisco before, but I'm going to go there and do business. So I just get on the plane and go to San Francisco. And it's not that different. Maybe weather might be different, but it's still America. I still speak the same language. People aren't going to look at me like I'm from a foreign country. But as an African American going to Africa, just because you black and they black, it doesn't mean that you're their brother, you're their sister. Not right off the bat. And to gain and earn that from them is a feat all in itself. And then to begin to learn the on the ground navigation skills in terms of how to receive, how to give, how to discuss business, how to identify good partners, how not to waste money, when to give, when to sow into something and when not to, how to invest, at what level, what are the steps, the phases and stages from here to success. To be able to achieve all of that, man, you need your own Nobel Peace Prize. Truly. Because it's not as cookie cutter. Every country is different. Even in South Africa, it has 11 official languages, and even Gugab's more in many other countries. And in Nigeria, I think it's like 300-400. So as an American who's used to hearing only one language and maybe Spanish, and then to go somewhere where everybody's speaking all these different languages, but yet they also speak English, but English is not their first language. So when I'm in South Africa, I'm not even going to talk as fast as I'm talking right now. I'm not going to speak slow like I'm talking to the deaf and dumb. But I am going to be aware that English is not most African people's first language. So I'm not going to use slang. I'm not going to use, words that we would typically know here in America, which we have very terrible, very loose language. We really should work on improving our language as Americans, speaking English properly. Because when you go outside of this country, you'll hear when you say, see you later, instead of see you later. You'll hear our lazy tongue. And then people will look at you weird, like, what did you just say? I want some water, when it's water. So those things kind of resonate differently depending on where you're standing around the world. But obviously more so when you're in Africa. Also, it's a big feat to be able to go into African countries and not be viewed as the proud, arrogant American. I still say that it's work to be done on both sides of the table, but I've lived in South Africa for a long time, and I've been engaged in Africa business across the continent for 13 years. I will say that I get more flies with honey than I do with vinegar, as my mother would say. So being humble, being kind, observing culture is still the order of the day. And I will say this, I shared this with someone just the other day. I said, culture at home in Africa keeps the village together, because they're not going to let no newfangled anything destroy the culture that binds a village construct together. They're not going to do it. No 5G, no internet show, nothing is going to stop culture in Africa. And that's where men will be leaders of the home, and women, you can be. I put this post out on Father's Day on my page. I said, the thing I love about, for sure, South Africa, that's where I'm raised, as an adult in African culture by the Zulus. I said, one thing about my Zulu culture is that no matter what you have achieved as a woman, you are still just a little Zulu girl. And every man you meet is a baba, who is a father, and every guy is either a brother or a father. So I'm never without a father. I put that out on Father's Day. I said, I'm never, when I'm in Africa, and that just doesn't mean when I'm standing on the African soil. When I'm in America and I see African men, I am straight, honey. I'm covered. I'm straight because their natural cultural frame is to be a father to everyone they meet. And so I find fathers, I'm not a fatherless child by far. I have great fathers in Africa and many here in the United States of African descent or who are African men, because that is culture. And when I'm in when Nkosana Dlamini Zuma, who headed the African Union, when she completed her term as the chairperson of the AU, she went back home to her villages just like any other Zulu girl. And she moved and then ran for president, but she moved around that whole country with such humility and dignity as a Zulu woman. I was very amazed by her leadership example. It taught me so much. In other words, it said you can sit in the White House if you will, but when you come home to your village, you're a Zulu girl, plain and simple. And so that kind of submission, and it doesn't mean that it's not women economic empowerment and women empowerment and all that, but I'm telling you that culture of role and gender identity in our culture of African culture will keep our society strong. It will keep our culture alive, and it will keep people, family constructs held together. And that is what I think we're also missing here in the United States. But back to what's really, really important for 2020 and beyond. I'm serious. We have less than 20 months. And these 18 months, when you think about it, we literally have 6 months to 2019. If I can hone that in even more. 6 months. That will go by in like 3 months. Next year, because it's the year before a new decade, like 1999, in my view, just flew by. It went by so fast. Next year will go, the 12 months of next year will go by like 6 or 7 months. So what I'm advising all my clients.
Jackie, it's already July.
Right. What I'm advising my clients, and I'm very serious when I say this. Hey, if you don't have a 2020 and beyond business plan, baby, you're already failing large. Because I'm going to tell you, for these 18, 17 months that we have left in this decade, and I cringe counting the months down, it's very scary. For me, even, who clearly can see where 2020 and beyond is going to take us, particularly Africa. I have a lot of sleepless nights, and Dinus, you know that. I have a lot of sleepless nights preparing for 2020 and beyond. See, you got to make a decision today whether you're going to live for today and the next 17 months, or are you going to give more care and concern about the next decade and being ready for that? Because these months, these 17, 18 months will tick down so fast. And if you're putting your all in right now, you're losing the ball. You're behind the ball, and because when the 5G comes, it's going to take so much more money, more effort, more concentration, more resources to catch up, to get in the game, because everything will be accelerated by then. And Africa will make the same demand on immediacy as you make today and America makes right now and everywhere else around the globe. So while you still have a chance, I really encourage you, Really, if this is a predominant African American audience, and I believe it is, please wake up, people. Please wake up. Stop spinning around in this country, America, spending all your money, absorbing every opportunity that you have to make a significant move towards your future to build a lasting legacy and achieve ongoing economic success. If I had a big business as an African American, and if I had access as an African American today to $20,000, $30,000, $50,000, I would stop my train. I would get some advice. Call me, email me, Profile Africa, info@profileafrica.org. You need to know and understand where Africa is going for you. What opportunities exist for you? And of course, I can't unpack all of them right now on this session here. But I will commit to doing some Q&As online here with Dynas. We're going to come together on a schedule where I can come on a regular basis and maybe do a series that helps answer some questions. But for more specific guiding aspects for how you engage or how you begin looking at Africa and assessing what you have that could be of value to Africa, you need to contact me directly for that. And bring your little money too, because this advice and this advisory and these strategies come from 13 years of hard work. As with Dynas. With those of us who went out there, let me explain that I cut down all my trees, I paved all my roads, we together with others made a lot of smooth roads for African Americans now. There were those that went on before me because, when I see, and I think I shared this with Dynas one time when we were chatting, that when I see an older African American in Africa, I respect that person so much. And when I can, I bless them financially. Why? Because they were there before the harvest was ripe. So there was a long period where they may not have eaten from the fruit of their labor because the harvest wasn't ripe yet. But they stuck it out and continued to cut down trees and pave roads so that I could go where I have gone. And then I have gone where those had not. So I also cut down trees. I also paved roads. And I also had to kill my own snakes in the process. So when you see older African Americans with gray hair and fine lines in their faces in Africa, honor your mother and your father so that your days may be long in the land which the Lord thy God has given thee. Bless those people because you don't even know their journey. You don't even know what it took for them to make these opportunities possible. There were times in Africa that I gave up the right for the wrong so that people could come away with the right understanding, not just about Jackie Johnson, but about African Americans. I have served with tears in my eyes to be understood properly, not as a single person. I've always understood when I was in Africa that I was standing in behalf of African Americans, that their one-time experience with me is going to make them think a certain kind of way about every African American known on the planet that comes to Africa. And if things don't go well right here and now with this one person, they're going to think all African Americans come for the same drama. So there were times when I had to make a decision. Do I argue this point out to win the conversation? Or do I shut up, humble myself, so that progress can be made. And I chose to shut up, humble myself, so that progress could be made and so that we as a collective of African Americans could win. So that the next time Dinus goes to South Africa or anywhere else I've been, if they've encountered me and I call and say, my brother, my king brother is coming. Hey, okay, Sis Jacque has called. Her brother, King Dinus, he's on his way. The princess, she said something for this man. Now he can walk on a smooth road, no problem. But what if I acted a fool? What if I gave them 2 snaps and a twirl? They don't understand what 2 snaps and a twirl is. So I had to give up the right for the wrong sometime. I had to keep quiet. As my queen mother would say, keep quiet. Let your silence speak. So that together we go, grow, and prosper together.
That's powerful. That's powerful. Let's see what we have in the chat room. Any questions in the chat room, family? Any questions in the chat room? But again, we have 154 people watching, only 91 likes. Please hit that like button. Please get these likes up. I will greatly appreciate it. Here we go. Athman Juma says, why is it that white Americans are all over the place in Africa for various exploits, but blacks are scared?
You know, I just had this conversation less than 2 hours before this video with a Nigerian who's second time here in America. And they were talking about xenophobia in South Africa. And then they moved to white people in Africa. And I said the same reason why when I was in my car just now, Dinus, being dropped off in front of the hotel with my bags and the 2 black guys who are there to assist people with their bags in front of the hotel, let my driver stack my bags up and watch me pull and tug my bags into the hotel. Now I'm almost to the door. They decide to stop having the conversation and run to my aid. And I said, but had I been a white woman, you would have been at the car door. Conditioning of people's mind. From here to Africa, and it's an abomination. But had I been a white woman, there is no way he would have allowed my driver to unpack the car and watch me pull and tug 3 big pieces of luggage by myself with my book bag on my back and my purse on my arm and a garment bag on my arm. But they're standing there having chit chat. Yeah. And I'm looking amazing on top of that. But the white woman could have come in jeans and her hair scraggly and a old faded t-shirt and flip-flops, and he would have been right there at the door. And I let them both have it, to the point that I dismissed them both and said, no, I don't even want your help now. It's not even done in the right spirit. I'm practically your mother, another black woman. You blacker than me. That means you had a black mother. And you wouldn't even help me with my bags until now? Out of my way. I said, but if I had been a white woman, oh man, please don't say, I'm saying, because I speak the truth. Had I been a white woman, you would have been waiting and even opened the car door for me. I see you every day. So that is why white people are all over Africa. The conditioning of the mind. When I first entered South Africa 13 years ago, I got more respect, obviously being an American, but amongst each other and people on the ground, hey, they were only, I think I entered South Africa as they were just wrapping up their 10-year of freedom out of apartheid, 2005. So, yeah, because 2004 was 10 years, right? I was still seeing all the 10-year anniversary billboards and things all over the country. And so even in 10, 11 year of freedom, they still were minds were bent towards serving, trusting, working with white people. Here's my thing. I equate it very much to the Bible days, and it's also in the Quran because it's part of the first 5 books, and they're the same. When Abraham brought the children of Israel out of bondage into the desert before they entered into the promised land. Nobody out of millions but 2 people that left Egypt actually entered into the promised land. Everybody else were desert babies. Those that were born in the desert had never ever seen slavery. Okay? They were the ones who entered into the promise. Why? Because their backs and their minds had never been broken. And I remember so many times when I first started going to South Africa of how much I had to stand up and look those white folks in their eyeballs and say, look at you. My back has never been broken, and it won't be broken here. If America didn't break my back, I will not come to Africa and let a white person break my back. I will fight you to the death. I'm telling you. That's where I knew I had to stand up and speak my truth, because white people in South Africa at that time were still expecting people to be shy and subservient and all of that. When I wasn't raised in that society, are you out of your mind? If you think I'm going to come and bow to you, I will break you before I bow to you. How about that one? So until we, as needed to do here, it's African Americans who made Black Panther the box office sensation even around the world. It's Africans even in Africa and African Americans in America who made Black Panther. And if we can do that with our money for however much the movie costs, if we can break 52 million, 520 million and on to $1 billion and la la la, if we could do that, why are we giving the white man anything? Wake up. Put your money in your own community. Stop arguing and player hating. And come on here and let's go to Africa and do some amazing things. Change your economic trajectory. But you're going to have some balls about you. And some resoluteness of why are you here? And then why are you going to Africa? I was just saying to the Nigerian man as we discussed xenophobia in South Africa, I said, I don't condone the killing and burning and some of the malicious stuff that's been done in the wake of xenophobia at home. But I sympathize and I understand. And he was like, what are you saying? I said, no, calm down. Just a moment. Let me explain. What you got to understand is that these people have been traumatized. And at first, when I first got there, I used to hear that all the time. And I'm just like, I thought just like he did. What's wrong with these people? Why don't they just wake up and get over it? But are we over slavery? Are we done wanting our just due? Are we done dealing with the ills that slavery brought to the United States and the African American community? No, we're not. We're not done. I'm not done. So what do we expect them to be done? They're just 20 years now into their democracy as a nation. They're still traumatized. And there's still a lot of people that came from Egypt. Now, the born-free generation in South Africa is who we call those that were born in 1994 and beyond. That is our hope. They are our hope for the future. And even some of those who left in the days of struggle and came back home. wealthy with knowledge and resources and relationships to turn the country around. But for the most part, as the Soccer World Cup in 2010 came and went from South Africa, how many of the regular people walking on the ground actually benefited from the Soccer World Cup and many other big global events, because South Africa is a very aggressive country, African country that goes after big global things, is seen as relatively safe and economically viable, and it loves to be the first. And because Nigeria have other issues and is not as developed as South Africa, then, and it carries a different global perception and brand. So South Africa gets the dibs on a lot of big things, but oftentimes, at least in the early days of them aggressively going after things like the Soccer World Cup, bidding for things, and even the Olympics, and holding the U.S. Olympic Conference is basically like a mini Olympics. They've held that. U.S. Olympic Committee, the Global Olympic Committee, Worldwide Olympic Committee Conference, where all the Olympic committees from around the world come to South Africa. So it's been very successful in getting things like that. But in the early days of their freedom, and when I say early, I mean the first 10, 15, we're just starting to turn a corner in being able to share the lion's share with the average person walking down the street, to where it creates a sustainable job and not something seasonal. So with that being said, for people who have lived through apartheid and have had nothing, that now is an opportunity for them to finally get their lives on go. And then here comes Zimbabwe, Kenya, DRC, Nigeria, everybody else from around the continent wanting the same job as a South African would get. And I still say, if you go back to my first time on air with you, Dinus, last year, and I'm still giving this advice to African Americans and even to the Nigerian guy that I had the opportunity to meet today, do not go to Africa anywhere looking for a job. Go to Africa to create one. Create opportunities for yourself and others. Because those people across the continent, not just South Africa, but the people across the continent are just finally getting their lives on go. So as I make an appeal to your audience about looking at doing business in Africa, make sure that's what you're going for, to do business. Don't call a job business. It's not business. You're seeking employment. And you don't need to leave a less than 4% economy, unemployment environment, to go to countries where it's 20, 30, 40% unemployment seeking a job. Stay in America. Work at Burger King, save your ducats, then go to Africa. But don't go to Africa looking to work at Burger King. Don't go to Africa looking to work in corporate Africa, taking someone else's job. Go with a business model to create an opportunity to fill a gap, educate, and employ people. That's what you should be doing coming from a first world country, such as the United States.
Man, that was powerful. That was powerful. Let's see what else we have here in the chat room. Let's see here. Everybody, again, thank you so much for joining us. We have 169 people watching, only 108 likes. Let's get those let's hit this like button, please. Hit these likes. Let's get these likes up. Real quick, I know this is a very somewhat vague question, and so I don't expect you to go to, I guess, really go deep on it and unpackage it. Just if you could name maybe one or two at the most business opportunities, that would be a great idea. Somebody brought up hemp um, growing hemp. I'm not too knowledgeable on that. I don't know if you are as an idea, but if you could name a couple business opportunities ideas that will work out.
Okay. You
Good
said someone brought up what? I didn't hear that.
hemp production. Are you familiar with hemp?
M?
Hemp, HEMP, hemp.
Hemp. I don't know it. Hemp.
Yeah, I don't know much about it either. Um, but let's see here. But just anything else as far as someone who wants to create opportunities on a continent, if you want to give like maybe one or two ideas on what they should do. Or what
Yeah, I'll stick to what I think, we have in abundance, that I know even if it's already there. That's the other thing I want to say before I share about these different industries. Even if a certain thing is already there, because the world is constantly evolving and Africa has risen, so it's not like it doesn't have a lot of things already. But what they don't have, what gaps yet remain is basically being able to meet demand. So even if something is already there, which I will name, it doesn't mean that there's an opportunity for you. It just means that we need to look in the right spaces for where that opportunity of your talent, services, or what have you would fit the best. But I can give you a few, like, for starters, I would definitely say real estate. Real estate is going to continue to grow, because anything relevant to tourism is a viable business as well, from tour guide agencies to hotels to food and beverage services to even hospitality training, because that is meeting a huge, continually growing demand, meaning travel and tourism to Africa is continuing to pick up, and it's just starting in our community. So just like anything else, when we get a hold of something like Black Panther, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, we take it to the nth degree. So the more people, even in our own community, as African Americans start seeing travel to Africa, then that's going to alone increase the need for hotels. But it's not just us as a community, it's the global landscape that's pouring into Africa, because Africa is the next global economic frontier. It's not just for Black folks. Everybody of all countries and kind are already there. But that's why hotel and accommodation, and not so much as the Airbnb kind of thing, because what is growing by leaps and bounds is the demand for long-term stay, long and short-term stay. I'll say short-term, like 3-6 months, because even in South Africa, you can enter in with a 90-day visa. So that's 3 months right there. And a lot of people go to various countries looking at business opportunities. A lot of companies are starting to send teams in to stay long term, to develop and work on projects. I think I mentioned that before. One of my media partners has a contract with a media agency in South Africa, and he goes there he practically lives there now, but he goes and stays a good 3-4 months, and then he comes back to America for about 2 weeks, and then he goes back over there. And it's mainly because once you get into a market, you see the growth potential. You don't get in it for that one opportunity. You do that to get your feet wet, but then because everything is emerging and expanding in Africa, then you go and do what I said to a client. You need a good proof of concept for whatever it is you're doing in Africa, and you go and do that from a proof of concept perspective, and then look to duplicate that opportunity again and again. So anything in the hospitality, anything in the Black hair care and beauty environment, from teaching classes on applying makeup to how to care for hair, natural and process, but the natural hair movement has taken the world by storm. And so Africa, although they're still inclined to weave, but even to know how to put weave in properly. Now, who you can't tell how to do something is African people how to braid, because nobody can braid like my queen sisters in Africa. As a matter of fact, whenever I need my hair braided down, I'm looking for me an African sister here in America. So they don't need help in learning and braiding techniques and tricks, but they do want to know how, because they look to us, African Americans, they look to how our hair is at whatever texture we're doing it. So if you are the weave queen in America, call me. You need to be the weave queen in Africa, because they are still trying to understand the finite way of how to weave to where straight weave is silky straight and la la la, even as wigs are growing in demand. If you make wigs, holla, give me a call. And if you have any, like if you cater to the stars in America, then there is opportunity to network you into some spaces of significance in the entertainment arena in Africa. Very much so. But I will say this in that respect, I'm not taking a zero to Africa to make them a hero in the entertainment arena. I'm not doing that. But if you have a niche area that you cater to entertainers or the media or television here in the United States, I got some opportunities for you in Africa. Also, if you are in personal care, like personal styling is really big business in Africa, as well as anything in the medical field. Like if you have a medical expertise, or if you are a supplier of medical equipment and things of that nature, there is a lot of opportunity. Also, anything in the educational environment, there is so much money across Africa to create what they call at home tertiary schools, which we call trade schools or trade centers. Or if you have an expertise that, or something that you are teaching and developing leaders, that you have a certified program and you would like to expand that certification opportunity to the African market, that is good too. Like anything in that builds a skill or a trade. If you develop entrepreneurs, if you are someone who train, teach, equip, finance entrepreneurs, that is big business. And the reason being is that millennials, they don't really like working for other people. And they like almost, I'm going to say like Nigerians. Nigerians could never sell to anybody but their own, and they would make a lot of money just because of the population numbers alone in Nigeria. They never would have to sell anything. That's why Nollywood is the bomb.com. It's about Nigeria, to Nigeria, or Nigeria. Hello. So that's why Nollywood is bigger than Hollywood. Nollywood is as big as Bollywood in India. Bollywood in India is about India, for India, to India. And they too have the high population numbers that they can afford to circulate their money from within. And that's their culture. That's why you don't see them married to a whole bunch of other folk. Like our black people, we're being diluted every day. 15 years from now, it's going to be very difficult to find a young person my color or Dinah's color in the near future. Watch. I'm going to leave that right there. But if you have talent that, like I said, caters to the entertainment industry, give me a call.
All right,
Uh,
everybody. I made sure I put Jackie's contact information in the chat. So again, if you guys are interested in connecting with Africa, if you have some type of talent or resource that you'd like to offer, please reach out.
I'm looking at someone says it's going kind of fast. They said, what about opening law firms in Africa? It just would depend. Let's see who asked that question. Kumati, somebody, it's gone now. But anyway, in terms of opening law firms, depending on where it is and what basis of your law practice it would be, you certainly can look at partnering with one who is already there, or look at understanding the legal framework, because every country is different. It's not like one thing governing the whole continent like it is here in the United States. So it just depends on what country you wish to create a law firm. And if you're talking about hiring local people, yes, 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 more than yes, you can do that in terms of hiring young lawyers and giving them great opportunities. Even, oh, the other thing I think is really, really, really big is working with even me and Profile Africa around building networks to where we can host people and groups from Africa and bring them to the United States and expose them to whatever your thing is that could be beneficial to them, be it best practices environment, even like I said, media. They want to get behind the scenes and understand some things. We could also connect with universities, medical schools, law schools, create particular platforms and events that we curate and bring them from there to here, and then take a group from here to there, so that there's some type of exchange in cultural understanding as well as knowledge exchange. That kind of thing is really big, especially across organizations, and political frameworks like young up and coming future politicians, and or even immersing any kind of group scenario where you say, hey, a couple of times a year we have this conference, or we have this seminar, this workshop, that we really would like to transfer these skills, or we'd like to bring fresh growth perspectives onto our table, and begin sharing how we can work together, because that's the first thing. We got to break down these silos that have kept us apart and start engaging in healthy exchanges, from dialogue to experiences. So when we create that amongst ourselves and offer that to Africa, that's a welcome mat. Then they invite us and we go and experience, and then together as a group or partners, you look at how do we expand this now so that we all can make money and win, or we can all grow and create the opportunity. I do want to say, on the 2020 and beyond, this is the time to look at creating the most amazing thing you could have ever thought of for yourself and then others. And the reason being that Africa is the best space to start looking at that is because it's the most untapped right now. But as I said, with every day, the window is closing. But there's still opportunity to look into that market and say, hey, this has gone really well for me in the US, especially if it's millennial related. It offers the longest gate of experience, even if it's investing. And a millennial that invests $5 a day or a month or week into something at 25 years old has a long time before retirement to use those funds in creative ways that continues to propel and advance their lives, or by partnering with them to work on things is key, because they're young, they are vigilant, they're capable, they're educated, they're ready, they're able to go, and they're able to carry and develop the vision for years and years and years and years to come. So I will say, in most businesses, I don't care what it is, always have a millennial agenda. If you don't, you're not going to survive the next decade.
Mm, mm. Well, Jackie, well, thank you. Thank you so much for those words of wisdom. Everybody in the chat room, please hit that like button. Also, I posted Jackie's website in the chat, so make sure you visit. All her contact information is there as well. So make sure you get in contact with her if you're serious about making a impact on the continent. Miss, I'm so sorry, Jackie. What we're gonna do, we'll go ahead and close out. Is there anything else you'd like to share in closing? And by all means, if anything else comes up, or if you think of anything else you'd like to cover, by all means, please feel free.
Well, yeah, thank you very much. I just want to say it's just so encouraging to me to be able to share, as well as read the comments of so many people who have got it. And for those who have gotten it, even if you haven't gone to Africa yet, keep spreading the word and share with us about your journey. Particularly, we'd love to talk with you and find out the tenor of your experiences and how you see going forward possible for yourself. But also, I want to just encourage everyone. I'm serious. I don't care what business you have or skill or talent. You could be a seamstress. You could sew really well. That's real big. I mean, trust me, Africa fashion is off the charts. And a lot of people that side want to get in it. They want to know how to sew in unique ways and do unique things with fabrics and all kinds of things. So there's one thing I can say is when I entered South Africa in 2005, it gripped my soul, and I quickly scanned everything I thought I knew, every person I thought I knew, and every skill I believe I had. And there was not one of those things not needed in Africa then, and I'm sure it's still in high demand today. So I do want to say, get ahead of the curve, look to your future, and not just the immediate of right now. It's about, where do you want to spend economically, socially, spiritually, and otherwise the next 20, 30 years of your life? And when do you intend to get about putting in a plan to do so? And take a look at Africa, get ahead of the curve, see where opportunities are. Call me, 202-630-2077 or 212-470-1853, and email me at info@profileafrica.org. We are a Pan-African brand strategy, public relations, business development agency, making sure that you know Africa and that Africa knows you. Thank you so much, Dinus. And we'll be back to let you know of some forthcoming sessions where I'll be more into opening up with the Q&A so that you can ask questions and get a quick response.
Jackie,
thank you so much.
No, Jackie, anytime. You know, you always have a home here. So anytime you want to come on, by all means, please. What you offer is of great value, and people need to hear this. So thank you so much for joining us. So everyone, once again, thank you for coming on. Make sure you go to search for Uhuru on Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, and Facebook. Also, Africa Personified on those same platforms. Make sure you go to search for Uhuru.com, AfricaPersonified.Africa, DynasAmir.com, and Amazon.com. Search your name, Dynasty Amir. Please buy a book. Also, make sure you go to ProfileAfrica.org, and check out Miss Johnson and everything that she's doing. Until next time, everybody, peace.
Peace.